It's my privilege to introduce our chapel speaker today, and I wanted to do it with a little pop quiz for our students. Like, you guys, you're in the gear, right? You're ready for final exams, and you're just ready on the spot. So it's a true false. So, we'll see how you do. So our speaker today is Pastor Shane Spannagel. That part's true. It's on the screen. Shane, here's the first question. Shane has been pastor of Richmond Hill Baptist Church for 1.5 years. True or false? The students here. It is false. Not 1.5, not 1.5, but 10 times that much. Like 15 years plus? 18. Oh, so you got to update your website because I think it said 15 on the website. Dr. Blackby said 15, but it's 18. Wow, you are aging so well. Like, I remember when you got here 18 years ago. Not a day older. Okay, question number. That first one was false, but you guys got it. Number 2. When Shane moved his family here 18 years ago, it was the first time he had ever been to Alberta. True or false? True. False, right? Right? Is it false? False. Because, your dad was the director of missions for this Midwest Baptist Association here in Alberta, and you were here as a young boy? I don't know. University student. So you'd been to Alberta? Wow. And was it screaming and kicking coming back to Alberta? Or? Yeah, so the Lord had put Alberta on your heart, and you came back to pastor this church. Okay, next question, true or false? Shane has a PhD in evangelism and led Oklahoma Baptist in their evangelistic work. True or false? Or coming? That's true, right? True. Yeah, he has a heart for evangelism and worked for a state convention before he came pastor here. And the last statement is also equally true. That just like our chapel speaker last week, Shane has a love for the Lord, a love for his word, a love for his people, and a love for those not yet Christ followers. And so we are grateful to have you come speak to us in chapel today and hear what the Lord might say to us through you. I'll use that one. I'm not using the headgear. Yeah, I'll end up fiddling with that other piece of headgear and be a distraction to you guys. True or false? I got shot when I was 16 years old. True, I was shot with a .22 caliber rifle when I was 16 years old. I was riding motorcycles with my dad, and someone we believe was taking pot shot riders, and I got shot right here in the shoulder. True or false? I have 5 kids. It is true. I have 5 children. One of them died when he was a little baby boy. But Maurice and I do have 4 living children. Our oldest is a student at McGill. She's in the law school program there. And then our next oldest, Caleb's at the U of L. And at home right now, online, as we speak. And then Sam and Jared are at Western Canada High School downtown, French Immersion. They're online too today. So we got 3 students at home today, all looking at screens. It pays to have really good Wi-Fi, you guys. Let me just tell you. True or false? I have a golden retriever. True. I recommend anybody in ministry get a golden retriever. They are just a people magnet. They smile all the time. Doesn't matter how bad a day was. They're just a great partner in ministry. I bring Hondo to church quite a bit now. And you'd be amazed how many people are just kind of down and out, and they just need a smiley face. Golden retrievers are fabulous. Yeah. These are strange times. True or false? They are strange times. A year ago, I would tell you that I had been asked to serve in a different ministry role. Actually, it was a 1.5 years ago. And I find that when people ask you to serve in a different ministry role, it always forces you to ask yourself, am I where God wants me to be? Am I doing what God wants me to be doing? And it was a little bit of a distraction for me over the years. I've had those questions before, and usually they're questions to go pastor a larger church somewhere down in the southern United States somewhere, or serve in another convention role or something. And I find that they're
can be a distraction, but more than often than not, they're a good opportunity just to reflect, say, God, what do you want me to do? And am I doing what you want? And last fall, I was actually preparing my church for a departure. And I had been praying through with my team what we were going to be focusing on for 2020. And I was at a gathering, a Send gathering, our pastor's gathering at Richmond Hill Baptist Church. All of you are welcome anytime. Usually it's on the first Monday. We're not doing much with Zoom these days. A few things online, actually. Dr. Booth, Susan was our last speaker online, 1st of November. But I was in one of those meetings. A speaker had come up from Lifeway and was talking, and really, I just said, God, what can you teach me today? And I hope today that's just your attitude. I'm not very great or good or anything, but hopefully God will teach you something today. Hopefully you'll leave and say, yes, that was worth coming for. God taught me something today. So I came, I had an open mind, open heart, and God, the speaker was talking about sin. He wasn't from NAM. He was talking about sin, and he was going through the scriptures all the way from Isaiah, all the way through Jesus and the fulfillment, and sinned and sinned and sinned. In John 20, as the Father has sent me, so am I sending you. And I just looked at that and it's like, we need to kind of regroup and do some things differently. And so my team, we put together a plan for 2020 that basically said we're going to encourage everybody in our church to be in a send group. It's kind of a home group, but a send group that's going to meet 4 times a month. The first week of the month, they're going to do a Bible study. The second week, they're going to do a prayer focus. Third week, they're going to do a ministry focus. And the fourth week is going to be a mission focus. And we had mapped it out for the entire year with this idea that you're being sent out. And you're not always going to be doing Bible study. You're going to be doing prayer. You're going to be doing ministry. And you're going to be doing mission for the whole year. Little did we know that COVID-19 was going to be happening. January, our one-word focus for the month of January was health. February was family. We have 6 Venezuelan families in our church. Families, we said our ministry focus was to help our 6 Venezuelan families. They all work extra jobs so they can send money back to Venezuela to help their families. We said, you know what? Why don't we just do a love offering for our Venezuelan families? So that was our ministry focus for the month. March, our focus when COVID-19 hit was money. Was it good timing? April was hope. May was margin. June was happiness. On and on and on. We said these 1 week focuses. We had helped get our church into home groups. And so we've got Zoom groups now meeting all over town, different days of the week, and they're still focused. And could our church have adequately planned for what was coming in the tsunami of COVID-19? No. But in prayer and in Bible study, God just gave us a plan. That was a year ago, September, for this year. And it's helped our church thrive and do really well through all the challenges of this year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through October. Our one-word focus for the word of October was the word help. Is that a good word now these days? Help? I think so. So help. So here was my four-part outline. I'm going to give you 4 sermons in one shot right now. And you're thinking, what? All right, here we go. 4 talks. Our help, open to help, offer to help, opportunity to help. Our memory verse, every month we have a different memory verse. And so our verse for October was Psalm 121, verses 1 and 2. I look to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. That's where my help comes from, the one who makes everything. Can he help? You better believe it. Our project for the month, one of the projects for October is Fire Prevention Month. It comes around every year. The fire department loves it when people replace the batteries in their smoke alarms. So we budgeted for all of our ministry projects last year. So back in January, we bought vitamin D. thousands of little containers so our church people could give them to their neighbors, just to say our church is focusing on health. Canadians need, every doctor will tell you, a little extra vitamin D. This is a free gift from our church, vitamin D. In October, we gave out batteries, 9 volts and double A's. And we said to our church folks, take these to your neighbors. They're in a little Ziploc bag. You can leave them on the porch if people aren't comfortable touching. There's a little card, a little business card from our church. It says a free gift from our church, but it's just a reminder to change the batteries in your smoke alarms because our church cares. Just a little simple way to be out with your neighbors. Me and my golden retriever, we took them to our neighbors and we had a great time. They're like, man, I just heard this on the radio today. This is perfect timing, man. Your church, like, wow, that's so cool. Where's your church at? Man. So, help. Just trying to help our neighbors. Little simple things. We budget for it. We plan for it. Everyone's learning a memory verse, 12 memory verses. Maybe church folks had never learned memory verses forever. This past year, they've learned up to now. They've learned, well, now 12. Because we're December now. So 12 verses. So, our help. Any of you ever read the book or seen the movie The Help? The Help? The movie came out in 2011. It was a journalistic expose on black maids or black domestic workers in the southern United States back in the 60s during the civil rights movement. These folks were just often referred to as the help. So derogatory. Have you ever heard someone refer to their wife as the wife? The wife. Can you go to lunch on Saturday? Well, let me check with the wife. Like, I hear someone say the wife, I just want to correct them. Marisa is not the wife. Marisa is my wife. She is a precious, special gift to me. It's not the kids, it's my kids. I'm here to tell you, personal pronouns matter. And when you read your Bible and when you study your scriptures in seminary and all your classes, pay attention to the personal pronouns. If you're like me, you may not have been very good in English back in high school. Okay? I didn't thrive in English. All right? But I'm here to tell you personal pronouns matter. They matter. It matters in Daniel. Did you know when Daniel was told by the government that he couldn't pray? Do you remember Daniel went and he was praying? And some folks came from the government and they caught Daniel. And the scripture says that they found Daniel praying, asking God for what? H-E-L-P. Daniel chapter 6, verse 11. Daniel was praying for help. He got caught. We know how the story ends. He ended up being put in a lion's den. Do you remember what Darius said? Darius stayed up all night. King Darius, he's worried about Daniel because he liked and loved Daniel. He stayed up all night. He comes back to the den, and the first thing he said is, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God. Pay attention to personal pronoun, your God. Do you know how Daniel replied in Daniel chapter 6, verse 21? Daniel said, my God sent an angel to take care of the lions. My God. Darius, your God. Daniel, my God. Just do a search. Most of you have Bible software. Just do a search. My help, you can find it 145 times in the scriptures. Our help, 217 times. These are by, more often than not, the great heroes of faith that are listed out in Hebrews chapter 11. The great people of faith refer to God as my God, our God. Have you ever looked at the Shema closely? Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord your God. The pronouns, they matter. This is the greatest commandment. You got to pay attention to these things. Do you remember what Jesus said to Mary after the resurrection? John chapter 20, verse 1. I am returning to the Father, my Father, your God, my God, your God. The personal pronouns, they matter. So we took some time the first week of October at our church to talk about our help. Who can we really count on? Our help. David said, I look to the hills. Where does my help come from? It comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. The second week in October, we talked about being open to help. Are you open to help? I want you to do this. If you're open to help, just hold up your hands and keep them open. Would you say your predisposition more open or are you closed? Close your hands if you're more closed. Or are you more open? You don't want anyone else to know that you're really not open to help, right? We want to be open to help. We don't want to be closed to help. Do you remember the Beatles song, 1965? Help. I need somebody, not just anybody, help. You know, I need someone help. I never needed anybody's help in any way, not grammatically correct, but it made them a lot of money, right? Isn't that cool? But now these days are gone. I'm not so self-assured. And now I find I've changed my mind. I've opened up the doors. Help me get my feet back on the ground. And won't you please help me? 15 years later, John Lennon was interviewed and he was saying, this whole Beatles thing, it was crazy. It went crazy. And he said, I found myself literally needing some help. That song is like so many other songs, like songs that Isaac Watts wrote that we sang a few minutes ago. They were born out of a context. And the Beatles song, Help, was born out of a context of, I am overwhelmed. I need some help. I used to not be open to help, but now I used to be closed to help, but now I'm open to help. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 5, there's a guy who was open to help. He was a centurion, a Roman commander. He was open to help, and Jesus comes to Capernaum, and the centurion says, I need you to help me. My servant is sick and dying. And Jesus said, I'll go to your house. And the centurion says, you don't even have to go to my house. I'm a person under authority. I get it. When I tell someone to go, they go. When I tell them to come, they come. When I tell them to do something, they do it. And Jesus says, you know what? All right, your servant's healed. And Jesus looks at the centurion and said, I haven't seen anyone with this kind of faith anywhere. The centurion was open to help, and Jesus healed his servant. Have you ever seen a bear with a bucket on its head? If you watch the news occasionally, just search up YouTube videos, bear with a bucket on a head. There's lots of bears in BC that end up with buckets on their head. Why? Because a lot of times a bucket will have something that smells good or it's curious to a bear, and a bear will stick its head in there. Sometimes it's a trash can or a bucket. They'll stick their head in and they can't get the bucket off. And so you'll see these videos of people trying to get a bear cub and hold it down and take a bucket off its head. Bear cubs, you'll see videos of them running up a tree with a bucket on their head. They climb the tree. Last summer in Wisconsin, there was a family boating. They were in their boat and they see a white jug going across the lake. And they get a little closer and they realize that it's a black bear with a bucket on its head. It's stuck. And so this family, like most bears, it's hard to get the bucket off their head. If it's a mature bear, nobody really wants to wrestle down a bear, hold it down to get the bucket off its head. But if the bucket doesn't get off its head, this bear inevitably will go off in the woods and it will die. It will starve to death. These people on this boat in Wisconsin, they pulled right up next to the bear and they were able to pull the bucket right off of the bear's head, and then the bear swims off. You can look it up. Family boating, Wisconsin. You think, that's a good illustration. I need that. I needed that today. I didn't have one for Sunday. There you go. Bear with a bucket on its head. Here's my point. Don't be a bear with a bucket on your head. Just because you're a seminary student, just because you're a Christian, just because you're a church leader, doesn't mean you're exempt from help. Being open to help. It's so easy to be closed because we're embarrassed. We think that because we're a church leader or a pastor or a follower of Christ or a seminary student, that we don't need anyone else's help. Humility is so important. You say, I need some help. Please help me. Are you closed? Or are you open to help? our help, open to help, offer to help. That was the third talk in October. In 2 Kings chapter 4, we're told that Elisha comes to town, and this widow comes up to me, and she comes up to Elisha, and she says, Elisha, one of the prophets, one of your servants has died, and it was my husband. Okay? And the creditors have come to our house, and they said, if you don't pay your bills, we're gonna take. She says to Elisha, they're gonna take my 2 boys and put them into slavery. Do you know how Elisha responded? These are his exact words. How can I help you? How can I help you? What do you have in your house? Do you have any empty jars? If you got some empty jars, collect all the empty jars you can, and let's start just like find every empty jar you can, and we're just going to start filling up with oil. You remember that miracle? And just, man, the mom and her boys, they're just filling up these jars, and when the jars ran out, the oil quit flowing, and Elisha says, all right, take the jars, go sell them, go pay off your creditors, and then just live off the rest. I love what Elisha said. How can I help you? I have to tell you that when I started this sermon on help back in October, the very first week, I had more phone calls, more emails, and more texts come my way for people asking for help. I thought maybe it was a mistake. I was kind of overwhelmed. I was walking in the doors of the church, and I had this lady yell across the street, help! Can you please help me? This is a grown woman. She sounded like a little child. I put down the stuff I had. I walked across the street and I said, how can I help you? She said, I live in a basement of house. I'm renting a basement in a house 2 blocks from the church. The people that I rent it from are selling the house because of COVID. They can't keep the house, so I don't have a place to live. But I have got an apartment in the condo right next to the church here. I need some help moving. I don't need any money. I just need some help moving. I asked her what her name was. Her name was Chantel. I said, Chantel, here's my card. When you get ready to move, I'll make sure we've got a team of people ready to help you move. She called me. She asked me on October 4th. She called me on November 4th. And on November 4th, I had another Shane and a Sam, 2 guys that are unemployed. I'm always trying to put to work these folks in our church that are unemployed, give them something to do. And they're always trying to work off my A-list. They know that my A-list is like helping people move and doing other various sundry tasks. So it's great motivation to get a job. You know what I'm saying? So Shane, Darren, and Sam Pyriel, they're helping me move Chantel. Chantel assured me it was just 1 trip. I have a big truck, and it ended up being 4 truckloads. And you know how these moving parties go. And so on November 30th, that was just a few days ago, I was driving out of the parking lot. Chantel was on the same steps where the whole conversation began when she yelled for help. And so on November 30th, just a few days ago, I rolled down my window. Another guy's with me, Daryl's with me. I rolled down my window. I said, hey, Chantel, how's it going? Everything's going okay? She said, yes. Thank you so much. She said, I'm going to be at church on Sunday. I'm going to be at church on Sunday. Sam and Shane have been inviting her and talking to her about God and where she's at during the move. We'll be at church on Sunday. Phoebe, one of my favorite people in Scripture. Not a lot said about Phoebe, but Paul said some things in that great chapter in Romans 16, verse 2. He said, Phoebe, she has been a great help to many people, including me. A great help to many people, including me. What a great thing to be commended for, huh? To be helpful. To be helpful. It begs the question, are you helpful at home? You know, some guys don't feel like they have to be helpful at home. I'm the chief vacuumer. Okay? I like the lines to be straight. I like everything to be just right. my wife, Marissa, she works hard. She works super hard. It's important that I help. I do my part. Work hard. Are you helpful at home? Are you helpful at church? Are you helpful at the office? Are you helpful in your neighborhood? Are you helpful at school? Are you just generally helpful? But by the way, Jesus likes it when we're helpful. Do you remember the conversation in Matthew chapter 25? He said, when you help the least of people, you help who? Me. That's what Jesus said. When you help the least of those, you're helping me. Helping others is so very important. So we talked about our help, first week of October. Second week, we talked about being open to help or closed to help. The third week, we talked about offering help, like Elisha. How can I help you? How can I help you? What can we do to help? And the fourth week, in October, we talked about an opportunity to help. An opportunity to help. When I say the phrase COVID-19, what words come to your mind? You guys just shout some out. What comes to mind? COVID-19. First word. Exhausting. Isolation. Unprecedented. Fear. Mask. Economy. Disease. Death. Numbers. Dr. Henshaw. What comes to mind? Lots of things. Does the word opportunity come to mind? If it hasn't, I hope after today it will. Historically, you have to ask yourself, how has the church responded to other pandemics? One of my church members, he's a fireman in town, also a seminary student, and been trying to work out how to get to here. He did some online stuff and different things, but he's one of our finest. Gustavo is his name. And he gave me a book after the sermon. It was entitled, it said, How Christianity Changed the World by Dr. Alvin J. Schmidt, professor of sociology. And it's on my desk. I haven't had a chance to read it, but it's one of these books that just says, basically how's Christianity changed the world and impacted the world in different ways. But I will tell you, historically, the church has stepped up to the plate. The church has followed the example of Jesus. Jesus wasn't afraid to touch lepers. Jesus helped people whenever the situation came up and arose. I take you back to 165, 180 AD, the plague of Galen. Did you guys know who Galen was? Galen. Anybody? Galen was a doctor. Galen was a doctor from Greece. And Galen served in Rome as a doctor, but was originally from Greece. Galen was the doctor for emperors, including Lucius Verus, Marcus Aurelius, and his son Commodus. So if you've watched the movie Gladiator, any Gladiator fans here? You remember Marcus Aurelius? Galen was his doctor. By the way, Lucius Verus died from the plague. Okay? When he died, when Marcus Aurelius became emperor, after Lucius Verus died, Galen left Rome because Galen was afraid of getting the disease. Now, because Galen took such copious notes, great notes, we have a pretty good idea that the epidemic then was probably smallpox. Okay? Because Galen took really good notes. So that was the real value of it. But Galen as a doctor, was afraid, so he left Rome and went back out to the countryside, away from the people. He was doing some, social distancing. Dr. Galen was. But when Marcus Aurelius became emperor, he said, "You're coming back to town, dude. I need my doctor here." And so Galen had to come back. But we know how the story goes. Marcus Aurelius wasn't favorable to the Christians in Rome. He blamed the Christians. He built all kinds of extra temples and persecution broke out. But the fact remains that the Christians didn't flee. They helped their neighbors. And you can look at all of the plagues throughout history, all the way up to the bubonic plague. It was Christians who stayed because they felt compelled to help, to love their neighbor. To love their neighbor. The early church, in Acts chapter 11, we know that a prophet came to the church at Antioch. His name was Agabus, and he came and he predicted that there would be a severe famine throughout the entire land. Do you know what the church did in Antioch? Acts chapter 11, verse 29. The disciples, each according to their ability, decided to provide help for the brothers living in Judea. And they did this, sending their gifts by Barnabas and Saul. That was Paul's pattern throughout the rest of the New Testament. All the letters, every time you see Paul collecting an offering to send it back to Jerusalem, it was out of this context because there was a severe famine in Jerusalem, and they were helping the widows and the orphans in Jerusalem. It was help. That was the context of the offering. COVID-19. Are you just like most folks, you're ready for 2020 to be in the rearview mirror and to see it go? I have to tell you, in Calgary has been a tough place to pastor. Why would Calgary be a tough place to pastor? You tell me. You nailed it. The affluency. There's a lot of money here. A lot of money. A lot of money that has been made over time. There's old money and there's new money. Calgary has a lot of money here. And when people have money and stuff and they have no perceived needs, they really don't, they're not open to help because of their fluency. But when divorce comes along, when death comes along, when disease comes along, it's a game changer. How many years have I been praying? And our leaders have been praying for what? An opportunity. We've been praying for Colossians chapter 4, verse 2. Make the most of every opportunity. Pray for an open door. Be watchful and pray. Share the hope that you have. We've been praying for opportunities. You know what? I'm not so sure that I'm quite ready for 2020 to fade so fastly. We have an opportunity. Am I done with the mask? I hate the mask. I don't like it, other than I'm not offending my neighbors and everything else. The mask. For years, I can't tell you how many times I've been out of Foothills, Rocky View, Lougheed, all kinds of care centers, hospices for years. My kids, they laugh at me. I tell them every year, flu season, I'm like, hey kids, you know what the military teaches. Do not touch your head with your hands. I don't care how bad there's an itch. Do not scratch your eyes, pick your nose, scratch your ears, put your fingers in your mouth. Don't do it. That's how you get colds and flu. I've been saying this for years. I go to the elevator. This is what I do. Because I'm not trying to get it on my hands. My hands are always dry from hand sanitizer. It's not just COVID-19 2020. It's been that way for a long time. The mask, I get it. Airborne droplets. But I really don't like stuff being fidgeted around my face because I don't want my fingers up near my face any more than I have to. So, yeah, I'm done with the mask. Am I done for COVID-19 to be done with? No, it's an opportunity. Last summer, BRT Construction Company asked our church if they could park all their trucks and equipment and use our parking lot as a staging area. I said, yeah, we can't have church here. You might as well. So they used it all summer. Blair was the point of contact. He lived in the apartments next to the church. And so Blair and I drive out the parking lot, we talk and visit, started building a relationship over the summer. And their project, BRT, was doing the TELUS upgrade all through Calgary. So if you're in Calgary and you've seen that TELUS upgrade, you know what I'm talking about. But so Blair and I, we've been in contact with each other. And they moved on. They moved on to another site. But Blair and I keep talking. And Blair called me back in October. He said, hey, Shane, I need some help. Our driller, our truck, when all the cold came, he said, our driller froze up. Can we park our truck in your parking lot and plug it in to the power? I said, absolutely. And so he had called me. I was leaving the same time he was bringing the truck in that day and started talking. I said, Blair, how are things going for you and your family? He said, well, things aren't that good. He said, my best friend's daughter, age 12, died last week. He said, you're a pastor. You probably know what to say. He said, I don't know what to say. What would you say? I said, Blair, anytime a child dies, you just listen. really know what to say. I've been doing this a long time. Just listen and just ask God to tell you what to say. He said, God, he said, I've always kind of been a scientist kind of person. Never really, I believe there's a God, but he said, I'm more around God when I'm out in the mountains. He said, I was out hunting last week. And he said, I was just asking for God for help out in the hills. I said, well, that's interesting you said that. That's something kind of David said in Psalm 121. Started talking. Help. A week later, it was a really cold, snowy day. I went to Tim Horton. I called Blair. I said, hey, could your crew use some coffee and donuts? He said, oh, it's a miserable day. They love it. I just bought, a big jug, a bunch of donuts, took it and gave it to him. And Blair called me later to say thanks. I said, hey, Blair, if you're up to it, you want to go for lunch next week? He said, I need that. I'd love that. We go to lunch. We get in the vehicle. Blair says, I haven't asked you this Baptist thing. I don't get this Baptist thing. Are you guys from, where are you guys from? Are you guys from the Anabaptist? How many of you take that Baptist history class? You have to read that book by Dr. Estep. He was my professor, by the way. Dr. Estep. The Anabaptist story. We went to Opa and we talked for an hour about God. Got to plant the seed of hope in Blair. Just keep talking with Blair. COVID-19, it's an opportunity to help. In Luke chapter 7, I'm going to wrap up with this. Jesus came to a little village called Nain. And when you look at Luke, and you see it you zoom out, and you look at Luke 4, and you understand when Jesus came to the synagogue in Nazareth, and he picks up the scroll, and he reads from Isaiah, and he said, today the prophecy has been fulfilled. I'm the anointed one. I'm the sent one. And then Jesus gets 12 disciples and he sends them out. And then he gets 72 and he sends them out. And you're following the trajectory from Luke 4 all the way to Luke 10. And you see that Jesus is preparing his disciples. That's what you guys are doing in seminary. You're doing some preparation. And then Jesus sends out his 12. And then he sends out 72. And you think about all this area that he's covering and reaching out to. It's interesting because in Luke chapter 7, Jesus is out there with his disciples and they come to Nain and a whole bunch of people come out of town. Do you know what's happening? A funeral procession. A woman has lost her son. And there's weeping and there's crying. And verse 13 of chapter 7, Luke 7:13, when the Lord saw the woman, his heart went out to her. And he said, don't cry. And he went up and he touched the coffin and those carrying it stood still. And he said, young man, get up. And the dead man sat up and he began to talk. And Jesus gave him back to his mother. Have you ever paid attention to what the people say after that happens? In Luke chapter 7, verse 16, it says that the people were all filled with awe. They praised God. And this is what they said. A great prophet has appeared among us. They said this. God has come to help his people. Isn't that what Christmas is all about? Yeah. God has come to help. Pay attention to the personal pronoun. His people. His people. God has come. I just gave you my talks for October. They were real simple. It was our send theme. Each week our groups broke it out. There was a Bible study. There was a prayer time. There was a mission opportunity. There was a ministry opportunity. People shared batteries. I'm telling the same stories as they happened in real time, from Chantel saying, I need help, to Blair, and so on and so on. And I would stand here today and tell you that God has been my help. He saved me when I was a little boy. He saved me from my sin. Helped me. Rescued me. Helped me throughout the years. Had all kinds of crazy bone injuries when I was in high school playing football. I got shot. I broke my face, broke my pelvic bone. God was always my help. But in the context of challenges came my calling. When my wife and I were in seminary, we had an old Nissan Sentra. It was dying. We needed a new vehicle. We made a deal on when we're driving out to the dealership, and the Nissan Sentra blows up on the highway. Smoke comes out the back. It dies. We pull over. We walk a couple kilometers to the dealership. We walk in and we're like, that we're ready to buy that little red truck with the air conditioner. And the trade-in broke down a couple kilometers away. The sales manager said, you know what? We're going to honor that deal. God just had a way of helping our family. We lost a little boy. God helped us. When I came to Richmond Hill Baptist Church, $3 million in debt, could hardly afford to pay a pastor. We had a mortgage payment monthly, $18,500 for 15 years. Yeah, $18,500. By the grace of God and God's help, we take up a Miracle Sunday offering every May. And by the grace of God, we paid off that debt. And we did our best every year to give as much money as we could to missions and ministry and everything else. And God was good. And I want you to know, when I came to Richmond Hill Baptist Church, having worked with the convention in Oklahoma and having worked with the Falls Creek campaign where we raised $34 million for the biggest youth camp down there, I knew on the top of my head and had a personal relationship with 20 people that could have erased the debt at Richmond Hill 100 times over. And I remember seeing the budget for the first time. I remember thinking, oh my goodness. And I remember thinking to myself, I want to make 10 phone calls. We're going to get rid of this debt just like that. And I remember God saying, you are not going to be the champion of Richmond Hill Baptist Church. You're not going to be the rescuer. This is my church. And I got plenty of cattle on lots of hills. And there, by the way, there's plenty of Canadian dollars. You don't need U.S. dollars to pay off this debt. There's lots of money right here in Calgary. Heads up. We got this. You're not calling anybody, Shane, because I'm going to be your help. And God was faithful. And God has helped our church. On February 10, 2018, it was a Friday, I woke up at 4 a.m. with a lot of chest pain. 2 questions go through your mind. Is this a heart attack or is this heartburn? 10 years ago, I went to Rocky View and they told me to go home because I had heartburn. You're a little less open to help when you've been sent home for heartburn. So I took some aspirin, drank some water, and I started feeling better. And at 8 o'clock, I took my 3 boys and we headed out to Nikiska to ski for the day. I'm skiing all day long. Saturday morning, next morning, February 10. We have a men's retreat. It's supposed to be out here at the next door. And all the supplies in the back of my truck, and I'm headed out. But at 5 a.m., I get this massive pain coming through my chest. And I'm like, well, water and aspirin took care of it. Took some aspirin, some water, helped a little bit. But I got out here and I said, hey, guys, this isn't right. And I said, you guys know how to do a men's retreat. I'm out of here. I'm going to the hospital. I called my wife. I said, get me to the hospital. I was having a heart attack pretty much for 2 days. And they put me on the stretcher and they wheeled me into Foothills. And do you know what was going through my mind? I looked to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. All I could remember was verses 1 and 2. I couldn't remember the rest of the psalm. My wife later gave me my phone. I said, I want to read the rest of it. Verses 7 8. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over you in your coming and goings now and forevermore. The Lord is my help. I trust He will be your help through all these days in your comings and goings now and forevermore. Thanks.